Welcome to the Elite Universe, Commander. My name is Drew Wager, a lifelong fan of the Elite franchise. If you're looking for an orientation on this decade-spanning game, you've come to the right place. This is the Meta Lore, the Fourth Elite, Elite Dangerous Part 2. With the Kickstarter complete, backers and fans migrated over to the newly invigorated Frontier forums to continue discussions on the game. New forums were set up, the DDF, the private backers, and the writers, each locked away from the main forum as part of the Kickstarter rewards for various pledge levels. The DDF was active almost immediately, with proposals being made for significant gameplay dynamics such as weapons, shields, travel, NPCs, occupation, ranks, and so on. Frontier developers would write out a lengthy statement on how they thought a particular topic should be approached, and members of the DDF would be invited to respond. Each topic carried a long list of respondents with varying ideas and clarifications. Frontier certainly took note of many of these suggestions. One particular example is the nature of the Frameshift Drive. The original Frontier proposal was to have micro-jumps in the game, which allowed ships to move directly to points of interest within the system. This was almost universally panned by the DDF as not being in the spirit of the game. All elites have had the concept of in-system travel taking a period of time, and the concept of supercruise was introduced instead. At some point during this process, the Design Decision Forum was subtly renamed to the Design Discussion Forum, the distinction being perhaps to emphasise that Frontier had the final say in any matters of implementation, though this did ruffle a few feathers in the community. Some of these changes to dynamics posed problems for the writers, who were trying to ensure that their books were written and ready for the launch of the game in early 2014. The technology and terminology often changed throughout 2013, requiring occasional rewrites and alterations as a result. Work had been done behind the scenes to create a series of lore guides to inform the writers and developers, but these documents were never made public, and are now out of date and irrelevant, other than for their historical value. It wasn't long before the launch date of April 2014 was pushed back. It eventually settled towards the end of 2014. Through the period, development diaries, sneak peeks and newsletters were sent out, advising fans on progress and providing insight into the development activities. Other communities began to develop around the game, such as Reddit, Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. Other fan-led initiatives also appeared during 2013, including the first ever LaveCon and Fantasticon, which were attended by Frontier staff and have been ever since. These have grown over the years to be significant and often elite-focused events with their own unique communities. The alpha version of the game was made available during December 2013, featuring a limited set of 8 pre-arranged combat encounters, with Sidewinders, Vipers and Anacondas thrown into an increasingly difficult mix of single-player scenarios. The beta, in early 2014, introduced docking with space stations, and a small subset of systems that could be travelled to within a lozenge-shaped sector of the galaxy, which came to be known as the Pill. The beta also introduced PvP for the first time, with beta backers able to take on other players in space combat. David Braben himself often appeared online, and many early players were noted to have either dispatched him in combat or have been destroyed by him. Both variants of the developing game were rolled out in sections, each adding more complexity to the emerging gameplay. Alpha and Premium beta backers would also be granted any post-release expansions to the game. During April 2014, Frontier Developments acquired, according to most reports on the internet, the rights to Elite by buying a limited liability IT consultancy partnership called Professional Practice Automation. PPA were assigned these rights by David Braben back in 2008. It's not clear exactly what those rights were, but they were sufficiently valuable for Frontier to pay more than £5 million for the firm. This appeared to give Frontier complete control over Elite and associated trademarks and content. The launch of the game was eventually scheduled for the 16th of December 2014. With the writers having aimed to publish their books in time for the original launch date of April, the first round of these books were published in mid-2014, prior to the formal launch of the game. Since some design decisions were not set in stone, this resulted in some of the books having a few discrepancies with the way the game operated. However, 8 officially approved Elite Dangerous novels appeared in 2013, prior to the launch of the game, and some have been converted to Audible. Systems that appeared in the books were added to the Galaxy map, alongside pledge rewards such as the Founder's World, named Shinatra Desra. The promised promotion of the books in the Kickstarter pledge turned out to be merely a single mention in the Elite Dangerous newsletter. Perhaps the biggest controversy of the period is the event known as Offline Gate. In the Kickstarter, Frontier had promised a game that was multiplayer online, but also available offline, requiring no internet connection to play it. However, a month before the game was due to be released, Frontier sent out a newsletter stating that there would be no offline mode available at all, but only a solo connected mode. The explanation given by David Braben was that a fully offline experience would be unacceptably limited and static compared to the dynamic, ever-unfolding experience we are delivering. There was a huge outcry on the Frontier forums as a result, with many claiming their not inconsiderable pledges on the Kickstarter had been taken in bad faith, and others criticising the timing of the announcement so close to the release date. According to Frontier, the decision was only taken very close to the end of production and was not made lightly. However, it transpired that Frontier had been struggling with how to implement an offline mode for some time, as they were aware of the difficulty from at least the beta stages. Backers who had not played the game were offered refunds on a case-by-case basis. A new concern was raised as to what would happen if the servers behind the game were ever shut down, effectively rendering the game unplayable. Frontier promised that an archived version of the server environment would be made available in that scenario. Whether this is actually possible, and whether Frontier will honour this promise, remains to be seen. The beta came to a close on November 22nd. A pre-release Gamma build was made available to backers ahead of the launch. One notable event during the Gamma phase was that of the first player to reach Sagittarius A star, the black hole at the centre of the galaxy. Progress achieved by players in the Gamma was not wiped when the full game went live, unlike the previous betas. Players in the Gamma reported that the content of the game was light in many respects, particularly exploration and mission dynamics, and they expressed hope that more content would be added in the full released version. On the same evening, the Elite Dangerous premiere took place at the Imperial War Museum in Duxford, Cambridgeshire. 2 TV presenters hosted the evening, Andy Akinwolare and Jessica Chobot, who interviewed David Braben and Michael Brooks amongst other staff members. Featured at the event was a large-scale model of the Cobra Mark III, nestled quite comfortably in the museum, surrounded by other notable examples of aviation. Attendees benefited from a free bar, special merchandise and a chance to play the game at the venue. Many notable fans of the game and major Kickstarter backers were present. Selected readings from the books were given, after some negotiation with organisers of the event, and some fans presented David Braben with a large cheque for charity. The game was launched on the 16th of December as planned, with David Braben symbolically punching a large red button at Frontier's offices. The first ever Galnet article, referring to a slave rebellion in the Sorbago system, was published. Elite Dangerous, version 1.0, was out.